On a bright summer morning in London, James Bennet stood among the crowd of tourists outside Buckingham Palace, his powerful American bulldog, Rex, sitting obediently at his feet. The 23-year-old social media enthusiast from Texas had been planning this trip for months, hoping to create viral content for his growing YouTube channel, James Gone Wild. The iconic palace gates gleamed in the morning sun as tourists snapped photos and pointed at the stoic Queen's guards in their distinctive red uniforms and bearskin hats. James adjusted his baseball cap and checked his phone's camera settings, making sure everything was perfect for his planned content. Rex, a well-trained 3-year-old bulldog with a muscular build and gentle temperament, had been James's companion since puppyhood. The dog's presence already drew attention from other tourists, with many stopping to take pictures and comment on his impressive appearance. Little did they know that both master and pet would soon become the center of an international incident. As James walked closer to the palace gates, he noticed a group of young British tourists who had been following his social media adventures. They recognized him from his previous viral pranks and approached him excitedly. Among them was Charlie Wilson, a local university student known for his own outrageous social media stunts. "Mate, you're that American prankster, aren't you?" Charlie called out, phone already recording. "The one who did that famous fountain jump in Rome?" James grinned, pleased to be recognized. His previous pranks had earned him a decent following, but he was always looking for that one big viral moment that would launch him into social media stardom. He had already filmed several harmless pranks around London, but nothing that really stood out. The group gathered around James, admiring Rex and discussing various viral videos they had seen. The conversation soon turned to the Queen's Guards, who were famous for their unwavering discipline and strict adherence to protocol. Charlie and his friends shared stories about tourists who had tried and failed to make the guards break character. "You know what would be absolutely mental?" Charlie suggested, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "If you got Rex to give one of those guards a proper scare. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make a viral video." James hesitated for a moment. Rex was incredibly well-trained and had never shown aggressive behavior. The dog responded perfectly to commands and could perform various tricks that had already featured in several of James's videos. But involving a Queen's Guard seemed like crossing a line. However, the potential for viral fame proved too tempting to resist. Charlie sweetened the deal by offering £500 if James could capture a reaction from one of the guards. The other tourists in the group quickly joined in, adding to the pot until it reached £1,000. "It's just a harmless prank," Charlie assured him. "The guards are trained for everything. Besides, Rex is trained, right? They'll just give them a little surprise, and we'll all have a good laugh." James looked down at Rex, who wagged his tail happily, completely unaware of the trouble brewing. The morning crowd had grown larger, providing the perfect audience for his planned stunt. Several tourists already had their phones out, having recognized James from his social media presence. Taking a deep breath, James positioned himself strategically near guard William Matthews, a young soldier who had been standing at his post for the past hour. Matthews maintained his characteristic stillness, staring straight ahead as tourists posed for photos nearby. James attached a small action camera to his chest to capture everything from his perspective while handling his phone to film another angle. He could feel his heart racing with both excitement and nervousness as he prepared for what he thought would be his biggest viral moment yet. What James didn't realize was that palace security had already noticed his suspicious behavior. Through the palace's sophisticated surveillance system, security officers observed the gathering crowd and picked up on the unusual activity. They had dealt with numerous pranksters before, but something about this situation set off warning bells. As the morning sun climbed higher in the London sky, James Bennet stood at the precipice of a decision that would dramatically alter the course of his life. In his mind, he was about to create content that would make him famous. In reality, he was moments away from committing an offense that would land him in jail and make headlines for all the wrong reasons. The stage was set for a prank that would go horribly wrong, and neither James, Rex, nor the stoic guard Matthews had any idea of the chaos that was about to unfold. James Bennet's palms were sweating as he gripped Rex's leash tighter. The crowd around him had grown, with Charlie and his friends forming a semicircle to capture the perfect angle for their phones. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace grounds, and the tension in the air was almost electric. "Remember, mate, £1,000 for a reaction," Charlie whispered, his phone already recording. "Make it good for the views." James nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. He had trained Rex to perform various commands, including one where the dog would bark and circle on command. A trick that had always been harmless entertainment at parks and pet shows, but using it here, at Buckingham Palace, felt different. Guard William Matthews continued his duty, standing perfectly still at his post. His red uniform gleamed in the sunlight, and his polished boots reflected the morning light. He was aware of the growing crowd but maintained his professional composure, as his training demanded. Charlie's friends had spread the word through the crowd that something was about to happen. Tourists who had been taking regular photos of the palace now turned their attention to James and Rex. Some recognized James from his social media presence and started whispering excitedly to their companions. "You need to get closer," urged Charlie, gently pushing James forward. "The angle's got to be perfect for the video." James took a few steps closer to guard Matthews, positioning himself about 15 feet away. Rex walked obediently beside him, still unaware that he was about to become part of a misguided prank. The Bulldog's muscular frame and powerful presence already drew concerned glances from nearby tourists. Sarah Chen, a tourist from Singapore, noticed the gathering crowd and the suspicious behavior. She had worked with security forces before and recognized the signs of an impending incident. She caught the eye of a nearby police officer who was doing his regular patrol, subtly pointing toward James and the growing crowd. "All right, guys," James announced to his impromptu audience, his voice slightly shaky. "Watch this. Rex is going to give our friend here a little surprise." He pulled out some treats from his pocket, getting Rex's attention. The gathering crowd had now caught the attention of palace security inside their monitoring room. Officer Jenkins, a veteran of 15 years, switched his main camera to focus on James and Rex. He immediately noted the suspicious behavior and the unusual crowd formation. "All units be advised," Jenkins spoke into his radio. "Possible situation developing at Gate 3. Subject with large dog showing suspicious behavior." Back outside, James had begun his performance. He made a show of getting Rex excited, something he'd done countless times in his videos. The Bulldog's tail wagged faster, anticipating a command or treat. Charlie and his friends had positioned themselves strategically around the scene, their phones capturing every angle. Some were already live streaming to their social media accounts, promising their followers something absolutely mental was about to happen. "Remember the command, boy," James whispered to Rex, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the dog's collar. The Bulldog looked up at him, trusting and eager to please. Several yards away, two plainclothes security officers had begun moving through the crowd, recognizing the signs of an impending incident. They maintained their distance but prepared to intervene if necessary. James took one last look at his phone, making sure it was recording properly. The potential views and likes danced in his head, temporarily drowning out the voice of reason that was screaming at him to stop. "This is going to be epic," Charlie encouraged, his own excitement building. "You'll be trending worldwide by tonight." The morning had grown warmer, and beads of sweat formed on James's forehead. Guard Matthews remained motionless, seemingly oblivious to the drama unfolding around him. But years of training had taught him to be acutely aware of his surroundings while maintaining his stoic appearance. James took a deep breath, his hand firmly gripping Rex's leash. The crowd held their collective breath, phones raised high to capture whatever was about to happen. In that moment, the young social media enthusiast stood on the brink of a decision that would change his life forever. The tension in the air was palpable as James prepared to give Rex the command. Nobody in the crowd realized that they were about to witness not just a social media prank, but an incident that would make headlines across the globe and land its perpetrator in serious legal trouble. "Rex, showtime," James commanded, his voice cracking slightly with nervous energy. The Bulldog's ears perked up immediately, recognizing the special command that James had taught him for performances. In one fluid motion, James loosened his grip on the leash while giving Rex the signal to start their rehearsed routine. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for everyone watching. Rex, responding to his training, began barking loudly and circling aggressively, just as he had done hundreds of times before in parks and shows. But this was different. The echo of his deep barks bounced off the palace walls. Guard Matthews, trained to maintain his composure under any circumstances, remained perfectly still, his eyes, however, tracked the movement of the powerful dog that was now circling closer to his position. Years of military training had prepared him for various threats, but this situation was unique. The crowd's reaction was immediate and mixed. Some people gasped and stepped back, while others pressed forward, phones raised high to capture every moment. Charlie and his friends were practically jumping with excitement, certain they were recording something that would go viral. "Go on, Rex, showing your scary face," James called out, caught up in the moment and encouraged by the crowd's reaction. It was a command that usually made Rex bare his teeth in a harmless display, a crowd-pleasing trick that had always been well received before. But something changed in Rex's demeanor. Perhaps it was the unusual environment, the tension in his owner's voice, or the energy of the crowd, but the Bulldog's playful performance took on a more aggressive edge. His barks became deeper, more threatening, and his circling pattern tightened around guard Matthews. Sarah Chen, the observant tourist who had noticed the trouble brewing earlier, quickly pulled her children back. "This is going to end badly," she muttered, reaching for her phone, not to record, but to dial emergency services. Guard Matthews remained stoic, but his right hand tightened almost imperceptibly on his ceremonial rifle. Palace guards are trained to handle various threats while maintaining their iconic stillness, but the situation was escalating beyond a simple tourist prank. Suddenly, Rex lunged forward, coming within feet of Guard Matthews. The dog's powerful jaws snapped at the air, his training momentarily overcome by the charged atmosphere. James's heart jumped to his throat as he realized he was losing control of the situation. "Rex, heel!" James shouted, panic evident in his voice. But the command was lost in the chaos of the moment. The crowd's excited filming had turned to concerned murmurs and shocked exclamations. It was at this precise moment that Palace security made their move. Two plainclothes officers who had been monitoring the situation burst through the crowd. One moved swiftly toward James while the other positioned himself between Rex and Guard Matthews. "Control your dog immediately," the first officer commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of authority. James, finally snapping out of his social media-induced trance, pulled hard on Rex's leash, attempting to regain control. Rex, recognizing the severity in his master's voice, began to back down. But the damage was done. Within seconds, more security personnel emerged from various positions around the palace grounds, forming a protective barrier around Guard Matthews while simultaneously containing James and Rex. The crowd that had gathered to witness a viral moment was now witness to a serious security response. Charlie and his friends, who moments ago had been encouraging the prank, suddenly found themselves being questioned by stern-faced officers. "Sir, you're under arrest," announced the lead security officer, approaching James with handcuffs. "What you've just done is a serious offense against the crown." James's face drained of color as the reality of his situation sank in. Rex, now subdued and sensing his master's distress, whined softly. The dog was quickly taken into custody by animal control officers who had been summoned to the scene. Guard Matthews, throughout the entire incident, had not moved from his position. Only after the situation was under control did he allow himself a small breath of relief, though his expression remained unchanged. As James was led away in handcuffs, his action cameras and phone confiscated as evidence, he could hear the murmurs of the crowd and see the disappointed looks on people's faces. His dream of viral fame had come true, but not in the way he had imagined. Instead of becoming an internet sensation, he had just become an international incident. The morning sun continued to shine on Buckingham Palace as tourists resumed their normal activities, but James Bennet's life had just taken a dramatic turn that would lead him straight to a London jail cell. James Bennet found himself sitting in a stark interrogation room at the Charing Cross police station, just 1 hour after his ill-fated prank at Buckingham Palace. The room's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as he stared at his reflection in the two-way mirror, barely recognizing the pale, worried face that looked back at him. Detective Sarah Morrison, a veteran of the Metropolitan Police's Royal Protection Unit, entered the room carrying a laptop. She placed it on the metal table between them and pressed play. James watched in horror as multiple angles of his prank played out on the screen, footage collected not just from tourists' phones, but from the palace's sophisticated security cameras. "Mr. Bennet," Detective Morrison began, her tone professional but stern, "do you understand the seriousness of what you've done? This isn't some YouTube prank gone wrong." You deliberately threatened a member of the Queen's Guard with a trained animal. Meanwhile, across London at the Battersea dog's home, Rex was being evaluated by animal behavior specialists. The Bulldog, separated from his owner for the first time in years, sat confused in a temporary holding area. Dr. Emma Phillips, the lead veterinarian, noted that despite the morning's events, Rex showed no signs of inherent aggression. Back at Buckingham Palace, guard William Matthews was giving his statement to security officials during his break. The dog came within 18 inches of making contact, he reported, maintaining his professional composure even as he described the incident. Based on my military training with K9 units, I assessed it was a deliberate attempt to provoke a reaction. The palace's head of security, Colonel Richard Hampton, was reviewing the incident with his team. Multiple screens showed different angles of the event, while reports from various security personnel flooded his desk. This isn't just about a tourist crossing the line, he explained to his staff. This incident exposes potential vulnerabilities in our response to trained animals being used as threats. In another part of the station, Charlie Wilson and his friends were facing their own questioning. Their phones had been confiscated, and officers were going through their social media accounts, documenting their role in encouraging the incident. We thought it would be funny, Charlie admitted, his earlier bravado completely gone. We never thought it would go this far. The officer questioning him made note of the £1,000 stare, adding another layer to the criminal investigation. James's social media accounts were being scrutinized by cybercrime specialists. They discovered multiple videos of him planning the prank, including one where he specifically mentioned wanting to make the guard break character. These videos would later become crucial evidence in his case. Detective Morrison continued her interrogation. Your dog is well trained, Mr. Bennett. The commands you used weren't random. You deliberately orchestrated this situation for social media fame. Do you understand this could be considered a planned attack on a protected officer? James slumped in his chair, the full weight of his actions finally hitting him. His voice trembled as he responded, I never meant. I just wanted to make a viral video. I didn't think about the consequences. Outside the station, news vans had begun to gather. The story of an American tourist setting his Bulldog on a Queen's Guard was spreading rapidly across social media and news outlets. James' previous viral pranks were being dug up and scrutinized by journalists, painting a picture of an attention seeker who had finally gone too far. At the American Embassy in London, officials were being notified of the situation. James's passport had been confiscated, and diplomatic channels were beginning to buzz with discussions about the incident's potential international implications. Rex's fate was being decided at Battersea. Dr. Phillips finished her evaluation and was preparing her report. Despite the incident, the dog shows excellent training and no inherent aggressive tendencies. This appears to be a case of an owner misusing a well-trained animal for malicious purposes. As the afternoon wore on, James sat alone in his cell, his dreams of social media stardom replaced by the very real possibility of jail time. His phone, usually constantly buzzing with notifications, had been replaced by the echo of footsteps in the corridor outside. The immediate aftermath of his harmless prank had spawned multiple investigations, diplomatic concerns, and a complete derailment of his life. As day turned to evening, James Bennett realized that his search for viral fame had led him down a path that would have consequences far beyond his imagination. The morning of James Bennett's preliminary hearing dawned grey and drizzly over London's Westminster Magistrates' Court. Inside the historic building, prosecutors were preparing to present their case against the American tourist whose social media prank had turned into an international incident. In a holding cell beneath the courthouse, James sat with his court-appointed lawyer, Michael Preston. The gravity of his situation was reflected in his appearance. Gone were the flashy clothes and confident smile from his YouTube videos. Instead, he wore a borrowed suit that hung loosely on his frame, evidence of the stress-filled days in custody. The charges are serious, Preston explained, reviewing the paperwork. Breach of the peace, endangering a protected officer, misuse of a trained animal, and violation of royal property security protocols. The evidence is overwhelming, James. We need to focus on damage control. Meanwhile, at the Royal Military Barracks, Guard William Matthews was preparing his written testimony. His commanding officer, Captain James Harrison, sat across from him, reviewing each detail. Your composure during the incident was exemplary, Harrison noted, but we need to ensure the court understands the genuine threat this posed. The court gallery was packed with journalists from various international media outlets. The story had captured global attention, particularly in the United States, where James's social media following had once celebrated his outrageous pranks. Now, those same followers were watching his downfall in real time. Dr. Emma Phillips from Battersea Dogs Home took the stand first, presenting her evaluation of Rex. The Bulldog shows no signs of inherent aggression, she testified. However, the commands used by Mr. Bennett were specifically designed to create an intimidating display. This was a clear case of a responsible animal being misused for reckless purposes. Detective Morrison presented the technological evidence. Multiple screens showed the incident from different angles, along with James's social media history. The accused had a pattern of escalating pranks, she explained to the magistrate. His online posts show clear premeditation in targeting the Queen's Guard for viral content. During a brief recess, James stared out the window of the consultation room, watching London life continue normally outside. His phone and passport remained in police custody, and his dreams of social media stardom had transformed into a nightmare of legal consequences. Charlie Wilson and his friends, now witnesses for the prosecution, waited nervously in a separate room. Their role in offering the dare had made them accessories to the incident, though they had been granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. Mr. Bennett's actions represent more than just a misguided prank, Barrister Blackwood addressed the court. This was a calculated attempt to compromise palace security for personal gain, using a trained animal as a weapon against a protected officer. James's lawyer presented his client's formal apology, along with character references from his hometown in Texas. My client acknowledges the severity of his actions, Preston argued. He got caught up in the culture of viral fame and lost sight of real-world consequences. The animal rights implications of the case drew protesters outside the courthouse. Some demanded strict penalties for misusing a trained animal, while others advocated for ensuring Rex's welfare would be protected regardless of the verdict. Inside the embassy, American consular officials monitored the proceedings closely. The case had potential implications for tourist behavior around protected British institutions, and diplomatic channels remained active in case intervention became necessary. Colonel Hampton from Palace Security presented a detailed analysis of how the incident had exposed potential vulnerabilities. While our response was swift, this case highlights the need for updated protocols regarding trained animals near palace grounds, he testified. As the day's proceedings drew to a close, James returned to his cell. The initial hearing had made it clear that his case would serve as a precedent for future security measures at royal properties. His attempt at creating viral content had instead created legal history, though not in the way he had ever imagined. The magistrate announced that full proceedings would begin the following week, giving both sides time to prepare their final arguments. For James Bennett, each passing hour in custody reinforced the reality that his social media career had ended with a single misguided decision at Buckingham Palace's gates. The Metropolitan Police's cybercrime unit worked diligently in their glass-walled office, piecing together James Bennett's digital footprint. Detective Lisa Chen scrolled through months of social media posts, text messages, and video content that painted a disturbing picture of premeditation. "Look at this," she called to her supervisor, pointing at her screen. A video dated 3 weeks before the incident showed James practicing commands with Rex. The caption read, "Training for something big in London. Can't wait to shock everyone." The evidence was damning. At Buckingham Palace, the security team conducted their own internal investigation. They interviewed other guards who had been on duty that morning, reviewing their observations of James's behavior before the incident. Several reported seeing him conducting what appeared to be practice runs with Rex in St. James's Park the previous day. Charlie Wilson's social media accounts revealed crucial evidence. His direct messages showed conversations with James planning the prank, discussing payment methods for the dare, and even researching the guard's rotation schedule. What had seemed like spontaneous mischief was revealing itself as a carefully orchestrated event. Dr. Phillips at Battersea continued her behavioral analysis of Rex, documenting the specific commands James had taught the dog. These weren't standard training commands, she noted in her report. They were specifically designed to create an intimidating display while maintaining plausible deniability. The palace's legal team worked alongside prosecutors, building a case that would address not just the immediate incident, but its broader implications for royal security. They examined similar cases from the past, though none quite matched the complexity of using a trained animal as part of a social media stunt. James's YouTube channel underwent thorough analysis. Content moderators flagged multiple videos showing him testing boundaries at other historical sites. A pattern emerged of increasingly risky behavior, all in pursuit of views and subscribers. His comments section revealed a community that actively encouraged such stunts. Back in Texas, local police cooperated with British authorities, interviewing James's friends and family. They discovered he had attended several dog training courses, specifically focusing on performance commands that could create dramatic displays for videos. The financial investigation revealed another layer of motivation. Bank records showed significant income from his social media presence, with engagement metrics suggesting that more controversial content generated higher revenue. The dare money from Charlie was just a small part of his potential earnings from the viral video he had hoped to create. Inside the evidence room, James's camera equipment told its own story. Metadata from his devices showed multiple deleted clips from failed attempts earlier that morning, suggesting he had tried different approaches before the final incident. Each deletion strengthened the case for premeditation. Colonel Hampton's security team created detailed reconstructions of the incident, using computer modeling to analyze Rex's movement patterns. Their findings suggested the dog had been trained to maintain a specific distance, close enough to appear threatening, but far enough to avoid actual contact with the guard. The diplomatic implications grew as the investigation progressed. Embassy officials reviewed James's visa application, noting he had listed social media content creation as his purpose for visiting. This detail would later factor into discussions about potential travel restrictions for social media influencers at sensitive locations. Sarah Chen, the tourist who had first noticed the suspicious behavior, provided investigators with her professional insights as a former security consultant. Her statement helped establish the calculated nature of James's actions from an expert perspective. As evening fell over London, Detective Morrison compiled her final report. The evidence painted a clear picture. This was no impulsive prank, but rather a carefully planned publicity stunt that had backfired spectacularly. The investigation had uncovered a troubling intersection of social media fame-seeking and security threats. The case file, now several inches thick, sat on the detective's desk. It contained not just evidence of a single incident, but documentation of how social media culture could motivate individuals to take increasingly dangerous risks for online attention. James Bennett's story would serve as a cautionary tale for future generations of content creators. The final gavel strike echoed through Westminster Magistrates' Court as Judge Eleanor Harrison delivered her verdict. James Bennett stood in the dock, his shoulders slumped, as he faced the consequences of his ill-fated social media stunt. "Mr. Bennett," Judge Harrison began, her voice firm and clear, "this court finds you guilty of all charges. Your actions were not merely foolish but deliberately endangered a member of the Queen's Guard and compromised palace security for the sake of internet notoriety." The sentence was decisive: 30 days in jail, a £5,000 fine, and a lifetime ban from all royal properties in the United Kingdom. Additionally, James would be required to complete 200 hours of community service upon his return to Texas, specifically working with animal welfare organizations. Rex's fate had been decided separately. Given Dr. Phillips's positive evaluation at Battersea, the court ordered that the Bulldog be returned to James's family in Texas. His sister Angela flew to London to escort Rex home, tears in her eyes as she collected the confused but relieved dog from the shelter. Social media platforms responded to the incident as well. YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram introduced new policies regarding content filmed at historical and protected sites. Videos encouraging pranks or disruption. Guard William Matthews received a commendation for his handling of the incident. His unwavering composure became part of the training curriculum for new guards, demonstrating the importance of maintaining discipline under unusual threats. Charlie Wilson and his friends faced their own consequences. Though they avoided criminal charges, their universities took disciplinary action. The incident would follow them through their academic careers, a reminder of how encouraging dangerous behavior could have serious repercussions. James's social media empire crumbled quickly. His accounts were suspended across multiple platforms, and his sponsorship deals vanished overnight. The prankster who had once commanded hundreds of thousands of followers now found himself infamous for all the wrong reasons. Detective Morrison used the case as a teaching example at police training seminars, highlighting how modern security threats often stemmed from the pursuit of social media fame. The investigation became a model for handling similar incidents involving online influencers. In Texas, James's family dealt with the fallout from his actions. Local media camped outside their home, seeking interviews about the international incident. His mother, Janet, appeared on several news programs, apologizing on behalf of her son and warning other parents about the dangers of social media obsession. Battersea Dog's home experienced an unexpected positive outcome. The publicity surrounding Rex's case led to increased adoption rates and donations. Dr. Phillips used the opportunity to educate the public about responsible pet ownership and the importance of proper animal training. The American Embassy in London revised its travel guidelines, adding specific warnings about behavior at royal properties. Tourism companies began including similar warnings in their tour packages, especially for younger travelers active on social media. 1 year after the incident, James Bennett sat in his Texas home, watching Rex play in the backyard. His jail time and the hefty fine had depleted his savings, but the experience had transformed his perspective. He began speaking at schools about the dangers of social media fame-seeking, turning his cautionary tale into a message of redemption. The incident became a case study in law schools, examining the intersection of social media, public security, and criminal behavior. Legal scholars noted how the case set precedents for handling similar incidents in the digital age. Palace tourism underwent subtle changes. While visitors still flocked to photograph the Queen's Guard, there was a noticeable decrease in attempts to provoke reactions. The Bennett incident, as it became known, served as a powerful deterrent. Guard Matthews continued his service with distinction, occasionally recognizing himself in the training videos that showed his unwavering composure during the incident. His stoic response became legendary among new recruits. As London moved forward, the events of that summer morning remained a powerful reminder of how the pursuit of viral fame could lead to real-world consequences. The image of a trained bulldog charging at a Queen's Guard became a symbol of social media culture gone too far, and a lesson in the importance of respecting historical institutions and public safety. James Bennett's search for internet fame had earned him his viral moment, but not in the way he had imagined. His story would be remembered not as a successful prank, but as a watershed moment in the evolution of social media responsibility and public security in the digital age.